If you don't get a job, you don't pay it back yet. Now, that, of course, does not compensate for the full cost of your education. It's only a part of it. But I can imagine that, especially in countries which have migrants going out at very high cost to the state in terms of their education, there could be a sort of a taxation rather than the compensation from a foreign state to a local state.
Okay, so, right, so we have another round. Do you want to go first this time, Ahmed?
Very quickly.
Yes, quickly, then I go to Nigel after that.
I do it very quickly. Thank you very much. I'll share your sentiment, Rachel, about that whether you are a circulatory migrant or a permanent migrant, you want to have a stable life anywhere you go. I fully agree with that. But I think the notion of circulatory migration, the model at least I have in mind, maybe Nigel disagrees, is different from that sort of providing a destabilizing force for migrants. This is basically circulatory migration in this case would be part of a migration model where right of return is part of the deal. People can come and go at will, number one. Number two, it depends on whether they want to stay or whether they want to go. There won't be any forced system of migration, a part of it. But establishing this system that people can come and go at will. If they register, they come and go, depending on the availability of jobs in the labor market. In the US, already the system exists. In the South, you employ people from Mexico, and they have a pass. They can come in. And there is a well-established system of people circulate. You have a proper system of the support. Back in Mexico, you have a proper system of the access to jobs in the US, which is legal, and you pay on par with American workers. So this is the model I have in mind, and perhaps Nigel could comment on this. Not the model that where you just bring them in for 3 months and then you chuck them out. That is not my idea. With regard to teenage pregnancy issues, this is very variable in my view. I'm not 100% familiar with the rest of Europe, but in England it varies among immigrant communities. I'm not sure that all immigrant communities necessarily have a higher rate of teenage pregnancies than the native-born people. So this is very variable, but in my view, my personal view would be that the education should start at the school level with regard to this, and culturally, this idea should be promoted among them, in the community, about access to health services, really. So it is a combination of culture and access to services, plus, of course, the education system.
I think on this, if I may just add a thing on this teenage pregnancies, I'm very far from being a specialist on this, but I seem to recall that for the US, the highest rates of teenage pregnancy actually and abortions are for teenage mothers from African American backgrounds in the American South, the southern states, and not at all to do with migrant populations in this. So I think there's another factor, other factors also playing their role into this. But yes, I think, but the issue itself, of course, is crucially important.
Just add to your point, this is exactly in the UK, among the black the ethnic British people, they're not migrants. This is partly high, but among the Asians, it's not very high. In fact, the highest rate of teenage pregnancy is among white working class people in the UK.
Sorry. I have a tendency, as you noticed, to talk too much.
I'll stop you, because I would like another round of questions to be put to you.
This question of compensation for higher education, yes. Of course, in principle, I agree. Whether or not it is politically possible, I don't know. I mean, I think the question of circulation is very important here. Not long ago, I had occasion to consult the Apollo Hospital in Chennai, and the doctor, the consultant I was dealing with, said, "Oh, you've got that funny English accent. I haven't heard that for 25 years. And he then said, I was a consultant in Manchester for 25 years. I got sick of that wretched country, speaking that rotten language, eating that rotten food and the rain and so on. So a group of us got together to start this hospital group, which is now a very powerful hospital group in India. I'm saying that because this question of circulation, it seems, is fundamental. What we don't want to do is make the system more rigid. We want people to come and go. You know, even unskilled. I was talking to a a taxi driver in Washington, which is my closest access to the American proletariat, I have to confess. And he was buying buses in eastern Afghanistan. He intended over 25 years to start a bus company in eastern Afghanistan. God knows what's happened to him now. But you see the effects in terms of stimulating in developing countries is enormous. And I think many of the problems begin to unwind over this question of circulation. Problems of the inner city, the banlieue. I agree, these are not migration problems, but there are all sorts of traditions of inheritance which go on. Have you seen, what is it, Gran Torino? Yes. Have you seen the film Gran Torino? You should see it with, what's his name? Sorry?
Clint Eastwood.
Chris Eastwood, yeah, because it's all about Laotian youth gangs, you know. So all of these things arise. Nobody remembers American gangsters. They only remember the foreign-born gangsters, the Colombian mafia or the Mexican mafia or what have you. There's a kind of, I'm always saying to people, don't underestimate your Americans. They're very, very good at the mafia, you know. Don't think it's all foreigners that they're the clever ones. And so there is a whole bias about this question, which there are problems of the inner city which affect, in France, the banlieues, which affect French and second and third and fourth generation immigrants. They're not immigrant problems. They're French problems. They're the problems of the reproduction of French society and the rashes of problems which occur. Always, this is why I find discussing immigration such a problem, because nobody includes the native born. And the native born have for thousands of years had a dirty deal too in all this business. And unless we can see that it's a social problem, it's a problem of the society, not a problem of the parents being foreign born or the grandparents being foreign born, we are lost. And not only that, politically we alienate the native born population, who feel that everybody's worried about immigrants and nobody is worried about them. Okay, I'm missing lots of points here, I'm afraid.
Tandan had a question on the existential crisis of the state. Which,
Oh, yes. Well, I'm in two minds about this. You see, as you will have seen in my presentation, I derive this from the use of mass armies. Prussia used almost its entire young male population for its armies. So keeping track of the male population was absolutely crucial for Prussia's capacity to fight. Same thing happened in Sweden. Very similar kind of intense control of population for war. And I think that's the origins of much of this. I say I'm in two minds because we can see in the US Army, which is today recruiting illegal immigrants on the promise of legalizing them if they'll fight in the armed forces, that the United States is using a multinational armed force. You don't need to have been born in Iowa to use an American weapon. So I'm not sure that I'm not exaggerating. This is what I think states feel. They must keep control of the population in order to defend the capacity to fight. But we don't need mass armies. They've gone. You know, all the wars the Americans have fought, there's a tiny fragment of the American labour force. So, in fact, all that need, the need to nail the population with its nationality in order to make the young men fight and risk death, has rapidly disappearing. So I think it's, in that sense, common